on the east coast of India. Its Latin name means rice, and not surprisingly, it was in these valleys that rice was first cultivated. The region used to be home to over 1,700 different rice varieties, many adapted to specific local conditions. But with the promise of high-yield hybrid rice, many farmers abandoned indigenous strains, hoping to reap the benefits of increased production. Pesticide use became common, and until recently, only 7 indigenous types were grown.
When some of the varieties of which go out of currency, then what happens that people will lose the whole knowledge about that rice, that is lost. So in the future, if we want to develop newer varieties of rice, using these genetic resources, it might not be possible.
But it's not too late to save some of the varieties. In this remote village near Jaipur, a tribal community grows traditional rice varieties. Their yields equal and sometimes exceed the hybrid strains, and they do it without expensive chemical fertilizers. They're working with the Swaminathan Research Foundation to find a way to protect the remaining traditional rice varieties while also ensuring reliable rice harvests.
So you see that we had a huge resource, we have lost out, and once those are extinct, you cannot bring them back anymore. So that's where the importance of gene banks is also there, that we also conserve our part so that we don't lose out completely.
The first task was to catalogue the remaining rice types and set up a small gene bank to hold samples in one of the village houses. This helped farmers regain a sense of ownership of their rice varieties.
So this is what we call the gene bank. What we do here is collect the various species of the rice, the varieties, clean it, and then store it over here in this form. And this remains here for a long time, so that whenever there's a crisis of this seed and this variety of seed is not available anymore, this can be used to produce more seeds and then used for the commercial purpose. So this is what we call the gene bank, in situ gene bank, where we store this seed at the villages itself. And it remains with the villagers. They can decide when to grow this variety.
Larger quantities of rice are stored ready for sowing or as a backup food store for unexpected lean times.
This is called duli. This is made up of bamboo, and this plastered with a mixture of cow dung and soil. And inside this, they store the rice. You can see it here. This is the rice. There's a paddy which they store over here. Then they seal it with the straw and the mixture of cow dung and soil and cover it completely with this.
So far, the project has rediscovered 350 of the original 1,750 rice varieties, with around 70 now available in the gene bank. But long-term survival of the rest meant farmers needed to be convinced of the economic argument. In other words, could they compete with the hybrids? To increase yields of traditional rice, they studied how it was grown. In the past, most farmers sowed seeds in a haphazard fashion. This led to clumping and irregular patchy growth. By using line transplanting, yields were dramatically improved. Successful line planting calls for accurate placement of seedlings, 1 hand's width between each row. Lines are kept straight by stretching rope between each end. Each plant has room to grow with no wasted space.
Using the old way of broadcasting rice, I used to get around 10 bags. But now, using line planting, I get 22 to 25 bags, and also use no chemical fertilizer or pesticides.
Avoiding chemical fertilizer and pesticides made the traditional rice cheaper to grow, while the crop was more reliable, as traditional varieties had developed a built-in tolerance for local soil conditions.
Our aim is not just to conserve and just have a museum kind of thing. It's not a live museum. We are not looking at for that. It's for us a resource which we want to guard and safeguard it very strongly and see that in the future, whatever the demand is, we can meet from that. We have to ensure that we don't go back to importing food grains from abroad. And we need to ensure that our people get food in future too.